Coming up on The Cut, Adrian Fontes exclusive, our Ethan Briggs sits down with the Democratic nominee for Arizona's Secretary of State. The message Fontes has for voters.
Plus, Brittany Griner denied appeal on her 9-year conviction after bringing marijuana into Russia. What U.S. officials are now saying in their quest to bring her home.
And Taylor Swift's new album is taking the world by storm, her impact on the music charts. The Cut starts now.
Hello and welcome to the Cut Network. I'm Denzel Cortez, aka Tony Montana, for a special Halloween show.
And I'm Leslie Chapman. The race for Arizona's Secretary of State has been heating up. Democratic nominee Adrian Fontes and Republican nominee Mark Finchem are battling for current Secretary of State's Katie Hobbs's position in Arizona's government. Reporter Ethan Briggs brings us an exclusive interview with Democratic nominee Adrian Fontes.
With Halloween right around the corner, that also means that Election Day is right around the corner. It is, in fact, November 8th. But one of the most important elections in Arizona is Secretary of State. Democratic candidate Adrian Fontes agreed to sit down with me, talk politics, and more importantly, our election process. How have you seen the country's attitude towards elections change from 2018, which I believe was your first election, then 2020, and now 2022?
How has the country's attitude changed towards elections? Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think there's a heightened awareness of election administration, how the game is played, how the rules work, how their votes are cast, and what the systems look like because of the heightened scrutiny. That's not a bad thing. That's a kind of a good part about this conversation. The bad part is that you have elected officials and people who want to run these systems downgrading the Americans who run the systems. Because remember, Mr. Finchem isn't attacking me. He's attacking people like you. He's attacking retired cops and teachers and the folks who spend a few weeks every couple years running those elections. He's attacking the folks at the vote center who are checking the IDs. He's attacking the people at the warehouse. He's attacking everyday Americans. That's the problem that I have, and that's where a lot of these doubts are rising as against other Americans. Because the system isn't just this anonymous thing, it's run by people, and these people are the ones that are under attack, and that's the real problem here. So I think where American attitudes have been changed in awareness, like they're more keen on what's going on and paying more attention, but at the same time, I think we mistrust one another more because of people like Mark Finchem lying about other Americans and attacking other Americans for what? For some political gain? That just, it's unseemly, and I think it's just bad for the country.
Okay. So, I mean, speaking of the people who run the elections, you know, the citizens themselves, there's been talk in recent years of citizens like myself, like, you know, everybody else in the state and the country, who don't necessarily trust their vote and how much their vote matters. Mm-hmm. So how would you convince those people to still go to the polls when maybe they're saying, well, my vote doesn't matter anyway, so why should I still vote?
Well, I think the question really is, and I think a better framing for that is, what impact does my vote make? Right? Not whether or not it matters, but what impact is it making, right? Is a better framing. And that leads to this other sort of an attitude of, if I don't get to decide, I don't matter. That's wrong-headed. That's not how elections are supposed to work. Elections are a collective decision. We come together and work, all of us together, to make this decision. It isn't about one person. So elections, if you're the person with that attitude, they're not about you. They're about us. Elections are a collective decision-making process where your input is valuable because it's your input. And whether or not it's an election in a small district where there's 500 or 600 voters total, or in a state like Arizona where there's over 4 million voters, that's not the point. The point is you matter, your opinion matters, and your voice helps us to collectively get a better reflection of what all of Arizona wants. So the less people that vote, the less true our voice is in total, right? And so if all eligible citizens voted, then we would have a true view. We'd have the real view of what's happening. So by voting, what you're doing is you're helping that collective voice become more true. And that's why it matters. It's, whether your candidate wins or loses is far less important.
Okay. So even though it is Halloween weekend and it can be scary to make big decisions like who you're going to vote for, I encourage you strongly to go to the ballot box on November 8th, no matter what your political beliefs, and vote. Back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Ethan. It will certainly be interesting to see how this race plays out in the upcoming election.
Arizona continues to be the center of election integrity issues from the last election in 2020. Many still believe the election was stolen. In 2019, Arizona created an election integrity unit led by the Attorney General, Mark Brnovich.
Brnovich sat down with former Daily Show host Jon Stewart for his show The Problem with Jon Stewart to understand what happened in 2020.
The fact is, the election in Arizona was well run, not fraudulent, and not stolen from Donald Trump, according to even your investigation.
I have never said.
Why is it so hard to just say yes to that?
I guess because I've spent most of my career as a prosecutor, and we still have some ongoing cases.
So in your mind, John, you still feel like after all this, you're going to discover a concerted effort to steal the election from Donald Trump and that it was fraudulent. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
So why can't you say the election in 2020 was not stolen or fraudulent?
I will tell you this, as I said.
This is blowing my mind.
On October 21st, former Prime Minister Liz Truss of Britain resigned after just 44 days in office, making her the shortest-serving Prime Minister in the country's history. During her short tenure at Downing Street, Truss proposed new budgets that involved sweeping tax cuts favoring the wealthy, which in turn tanked the British pound by more than 10%, causing mortgage rates to spike. Britain's inflation had rose more quickly than in the U.S., and Truss felt the backlash from her own Conservative Party. On Monday, former Finance Minister Rishi Sunak was named the next UK Prime Minister. He will be the youngest Prime Minister in Britain's history, but also the first non-white Prime Minister to be in Downing Street.
WNBA superstar Brittany Griner will continue to serve time in a Russian prison after a judge denied her appeal to be released on Tuesday. Griner was sentenced to 9 years in prison in August on charges of carrying vape cartridges and cannabis oil. Marijuana is not allowed in Russia, but Griner's doctors say she was prescribed it for medicinal use and had no criminal intent. Griner's situation captured the attention of President Biden, who is aiming to bring Griner and the detained Marine Paul Whelan back home via prisoner swap.
A gunman killed 2 people Monday morning in a shooting at Central Visual and Performing Arts School in St. Louis. According to the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department, when officers arrived at the scene, they shot and killed the gunman. According to interim St. Louis Police Chief Lieutenant Colonel Michael Sack, the shooting happened around 9:10 a.m. Officers arrived at the school and immediately entered the building. As students were filing out of the school, they told police that the suspect was armed with a long gun. Sack said officers heard gunfire and ran toward it. The officers located the shooter and both sides exchanged gunfire. The shooter was struck and taken to the hospital where he later died. The shooter was identified as 19-year-old Orlando Harris. Sack said that no officers were injured during the incident. 7 people were injured during the shooting. 1 adult woman and a teenage girl were pronounced dead at the hospital. One of the victims was identified as Jean Kushka, a physical education teacher.
The death of George Floyd sparked protest around the world in 2020. Now, the officers in connection with his death are going to trial. Reporter Larissa May joins us with an updated timeline.
Thank you, Denson and Leslie. 2 of the officers involved in the death of George Floyd in May of 2020 are heading to trial. J. Alexander King and To Tao are being put on trial for aiding and abetting Derek Chauvin. This is the 3rd trial regarding George Floyd's death, following the conviction of Chauvin for unintentional murder and second-degree manslaughter, and the conviction of Thomas Lane, King, and Tao for civil rights violations. King and Tao are both rejecting a plea deal, while Lane accepted the bargain and pled guilty to aiding and abetting Chauvin in exchange for a 3-year sentence. It's unclear how many prior witnesses will again be testifying. However, Judge Peter Cahill, who is presiding over the case, asked that repeated information and emotional appeals be kept to a minimum. The jury is currently being selected for the trial, but the process is slow going as the court tries to find the most impartial jurors. Unlk Chauvin's trial, which took place during the height of the COVID pandemic, this case will not be live streamed. For The Cut, I'm Larissa May.
Thank you, Larissa. We will keep you updated.
A federal appeals court issued an administrative stay Friday that temporarily blocks President Joe Biden's plan to cancel billions of dollars in federal student loan debt. This happened just days after people started applying for loan forgiveness. The 8th Circuit Court of Appeals issued the stay while it considers a motion from 6 Republican-led states to block the program. The stay ordered the Biden administration to not act on the program while the court considers the appeal. As of right now, it is unclear what this decision means for the 22 million borrowers who have already applied for the relief. The Biden administration is now estimating a goal to begin clearing loans in mid-November. The White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre encouraged borrowers to continue applying for relief, saying that the court's temporary order does not prevent applications or the review of them. The question now is whether the issue will be resolved before January 1st, when payments are scheduled to resume after being paused during the pandemic. Biden has said previous extension of the payments pause would be the final one, but many of economists worry that many Americans have not regained financial stability from the pandemic.
The Trump Organization allegedly overcharged the Secret Service for agent stays at Trump-owned properties during their time protecting the former president. The House Oversight Committee says the charges exceeded the government's approved rate, which Secret Service records show payments totaling over $1.4 million. According to the documents, the Secret Service was charged for as much as $1,185 per room per night. This is nearly 5 times the government rate, which is set by General Services Administration. The Oversight Committee has been seeking a full report of the Secret Service's spending at Trump-owned properties for over 2 years. But Chairwoman Carolyn Maloney says she is still waiting for the complete information on the total amount spent. In her letter to the Secret Service's Director Kimberly Cheadle, Maloney asks the agency to identify all of the Secret Service's stays at Trump-owned properties, along with their total costs and nightly rates by October 31st.
Recently, a tragic accident took place on the I-17 where 3 college students were killed in a car accident. But experts say accidents like this can be prevented in the future. With more on the story, here is reporter Miley Kakal.
Thank you, Denzin and Leslie. A little over a week ago, 3 Grand Canyon University students were killed from a wrong-way crash on the I-17. Their names Aubriana Hoffman, Hunter Balberti, and Magdalene Ogden. Reporters had received information from their friends that they were on their way to go watch the sunrise at the Grand Canyon on October 10th. The head-on crash was not confirmed that the driver was impaired, but officials said that they could have been driving the wrong way for almost 14 miles. This is not a unique thing in Arizona. The Arizona Department of Transportation launched a program in 2018 to combat wrong-way drivers. The program is called the Wrong Way Vehicle Detection and Alert System. It uses 90 thermal imaging cameras to monitor several high-traffic freeway entrances in the valley. If drivers begin driving the wrong way, a police unit is dispatched and all the signs on the roadway begin flashing wrong-way driver. To date, the program has already prevented 300 crashes from happening. ADOT is planning to add more of these cameras in 2023. While the department has several cameras, there were no cameras near the crash site. These students passed at a young age and definitely hit home for some of the new college communities in Arizona. Memorials and fundraisers have been launched for these 3 students and future hopes for the urgency of improving the system to prevent wrong-way crashes. For The Cut, I'm Miley Kakal. Back to you at the table.
Thank you, Miley. We send our love to the families affected by the accident and hope that wrong-way driving incidents like this can be prevented in the future.
Taylor Swift broke records this past week with the release of her album, Midnights. Collecting the most album streams in one day ever on Spotify, her album has ruled the music charts since the moment of its release. Reporter Wendy Maddox is here with more on the album, and it seems like this one could be on the charts for a while.
Thank you, Denton and Leslie. Over the past week, Taylor Swift has held the music industry in a chokehold with the release of her 10th studio album, Midnights. With 13 made tracks, Swift released pop anthems that reminded fans of her previous albums, Lover and Reputation. In true Taylor Swift fashion, the musician surprised her fans by dropping 7 extra tracks 3 hours after the original album release, along with the music video release of the song Anti-Hero the next morning. Midnights became the most streamed album in a single day on Spotify, making Swift the most streamed artist for Spotify in a single day. Topping the Spotify charts for October 21st to 23rd were the songs Anti-Hero and Lavender Haze, followed by Snow on the Beach, Maroon, and Midnight Rain. Some of the fans' criticism of the album came from the song Snow on the Beach, where singer Lana Del Rey's feature was smaller than expected. However, this did not affect the streaming of the album whatsoever. According to LA Times, Midnights received 185 million streams worldwide in one day. Additionally, Swift released a new music video for the song Bejeweled on Monday, which was filled with Easter eggs and hints to her supposed next album, the re-recording of her 3rd studio album, Speak Now. For the Cut Network, I'm Wendy Maddox.
Thanks, Wendy. I look forward to seeing how long Taylor will be on the charts.
With recent spikes of the UFO sightings in the U.S., something almost out of the Twilight Zone almost, NASA has announced 16 people who will spend the next 9 months studying UFOs to potentially uncover the unexplainable. The selected group includes former NASA astronaut Scott Kelly and science journalist, National Geographic contributing writer Nadia Drake, along with professors, scientists, and an oceanographer. The goal of the research is to examine which sightings are considered natural and which cannot be explained, and release its findings to the public by mid-2023.
Every Halloween, people flock to haunted houses. Reporter Zoe Goslin is here with the Valley's top haunted homes.
Thanks, Denton and Leslie. Halloween weekend is this weekend, and there are many places and events to go to all over the valley. Many pumpkin patches around the valley have Halloween and fall festivities. Tomachaw Farm, Mother Nature Farm, and Mortimer Farm are all very popular pumpkin patches that offer fun for all ages. Prices vary from $10 to $20. If you like haunts, Fear Farm, 13th Floor, and Scarizona have many haunts to offer you. Fear Farm is a haunted fairground and corn maze, 13th Floor is a haunted house, and Scarizona is a scareground with 2 different haunted houses. Each of these places has many different events and attractions, so if you're interested in going this Halloween, make sure you are looking at the events for the time you would like to go. Prices vary from $20 to $30, and remember, you are paying to be scared. Happy Halloween weekend, everyone. For The Cut, I'm Zoe Goslin.
That sure was scary. Thank you, Zoe.
Yeah, it did look pretty scary. But Halloween movies took over the box office charts as the holiday approaches. We have Max Weiland in the studio to give you an update on all the latest horror movies, and it is a perfect week to visit your local theater and get scared. Ain't that right, Max?
That's right, Denton and Leslie. Halloween is just around the corner, which makes it the perfect time to go watch something that will keep you up all night. This year, a number of horror movies just released just in time to give us that scare. First off, Michael Myers is back again in Halloween Ends, but this time he's seeking the help of an apprentice, Corey Cunningham, played by Rohan Campbell, is a new character in the series who has an encounter with Myers and gives Jamie Lee Curtis another scare this Halloween. Another movie that has been giving everyone the creeps is Smile. An unexplainable plague leaves a trail of murders that eventually finds its way to Dr. Rose Cotter, played by Sosie Bacon, who must tackle her problems of her past to fight the demon in her life now. Lastly, Pray for the Devil is out in theaters and tells a story about a Sister Anne, played by Jacqueline Bayers, the first female exorcist who, alongside Father Dante, Christian Navarro, fights to save a little girl from a familiar demon. Don't miss out on the scares this Halloween and hit the closest theater. I'm Max Weiland, back to the desk.
Thank you, Max. I saw both of those films, and what can I say? They were great films, but it's certainly a scary time to be a moviegoer.
Yeah, I'm not really into horror movies, but I'll take your word for it, Max. All eyes will be turned to the skies this weekend. The 10th annual Spooktacular Hot Air Balloon Festival is coming to town. The event will feature more than 20 hot air balloons. The festival will happen in Scottsdale on Friday and Saturday at Salt River Fields. The festival will have 30 slides and attractions for kids, plus fireworks at the end of the night. Entrance into the festival will cost $22 for adults and $17 for children ages 2 and up.
Could the charcuterie board now have a rival? Due to high prices of meat that make up a charcuterie board, people are now turning to a different solution just in time for the holidays.
The solution could set off a slippery slope. Take a look at this. That is, in fact, butter. They're calling it a butter board. Instead of the traditional board decorated with cheese and protein, this will feature all styles of butter. This trend has taken over after it was first coined by a TikTok user in September. The original video that officially coined this term has 240 million views.
Leslie, have you had a charcuterie board before?
I've had a charcuterie board, but not a butter board. Not sure how I feel about that one.
That's something I've never had. I've never had a charcuterie board. I've never tried a butter board, but that's something that could come up as something that I would be open-minded to, you know?
Next thing for Thanksgiving.
You said Costco has some?
Costco.
There you go.
All the things.
Well, thank you for joining us in this special Halloween episode.
We will see you next week on The Cut.